Hello and welcome back to Talking Giants. Today is Wednesday, January 14th, 2026, and it's a rare episode of Talking Giants because we're putting this out kind of in the middle of the day. I did not want to wait to put out this episode tomorrow on a Thursday morning because John Harbaugh is in the building. I think as I'm recording this at 10:58 a.m., John Harbaugh is in the Giants facility, 1925 Giants Drive, Quest Diagnostics. Joe Shane is showing them off the awesome technology that is in the Giants building, and hopefully hopefully it's so damn good that it's like, oh my God, I gotta just be here. So it could be a scenario where John Harbaugh doesn't leave the building, or it could be a scenario where John Harbaugh promised the Titans, he promised the Falcons, whether it be some other teams that is going to be setting up an interview. I promised that I would at least just show up, or hopefully he doesn't even take that job at all. Hopefully he just stays in the building and then he is the Giants coach. But we have a conversation with Gary Myers. Gary Myers has been tweeting and talking and reporting all about the John Harbaugh situation, so I wanted to get his perspective. And we kind of just turned into like he's been covering the league for so long, New York sports, and he's been an author, New York Times bestselling author. We talk all about that too. And he just has such a wealth of just experience, and that is one thing that I certainly do not have of covering the league and how it's changed, and like how rare this is, how rare like this coaching cycle is, and even just the Harbaugh scenario and situation itself, just how rare it is. So right now, John Harbaugh is in the building. I am going to shut up, and I'm going to let Gary Myers tell you everything that's going on and his perspective on things. Here's Gary Myers. Hope you enjoy the interview. I want to welcome you back to the show, and now I want to welcome on for the first time to Talk Giants history, New York Times bestselling author of the books like Brady versus Manning, which was a bestseller, might I add, the Dynasty Debate about Brady and Belichick, and of course, Once a Giant about the 1986 Giants Super Bowl team. If I counted right, on Amazon, you have 8 books available for purchase. You're also the host on ESPN Radio on Saturday mornings, which is a great show. Gary Myers, thanks for joining me. Honored that you're here. Thanks for making time for me this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, Justin. The ESPN show is it's Saturday afternoons, and the time is varied a little bit during the playoffs. This week it's going to be 4 to 7, then I'm back at the usual time at noon starting a week from Saturday. But I appreciate you mentioning it.
No, of course. And I want to kind of like get right to it. As soon as you hopped on this call, we got the update that John Harbaugh is going to be in the building. He may be even in the building now. There's the time that we're recording this at 10 a.m. The sleuths of the internet have are tracking. We're tracking planes this morning. It's kind of crazy. So even at the time that we're recording this in the morning, he could be in the building. So let's just start off with the updates. Where do we stand with John Harbaugh? What could this timeline possibly look like, and how good of a shot do the Giants have at landing this plane? How do you like that metaphor?
Yeah, I like that. At least they didn't make them take Amtrak. Not that there's anything wrong with Amtrak, but if they flew him up here, that's a nice way to go. I'm not obviously they were going to get an in-person interview. I mean, I've heard from the very beginning that he likes the Giants and the Giants are in love with him, and it appears that the Falcons and the Titans are the other 2 finalists. John spoke to every team in the week or so since he's been fired, and apparently he has narrowed down his list. That doesn't mean it can't expand. Say if the Steelers reach out to him, which would be really interesting if he went to the Steelers. But I think it's between the Giants, the Falcons, and the Titans as we sit here right now. And I wrote this the other day, and I said it on the radio. Justin, if you go up first, like the Giants are doing in this process, you just throw everything at him, including a contract, and have him fax it or email it or DocuSign it, send it to his agent to read over, and you don't let him out of the building. It's the same as free agency. I can't remember the last time a coach has had this much demand, and he's got a lot of leverage, but I think it's a positive sign to go first. Others, and I know you said it, you thought it'd be better to go last. My feeling is you make a pitch, you blow him away, you give him what he wants in terms of, input into the personnel. You give him what he wants to make him happy with the money, and I don't think the money is going to be an issue. And you sell him on the Giants' tradition and legacy and what it would mean to win a Super Bowl. No coaches won a Super Bowl for 2 different teams, and to do it in New York, he'll be a forever hero. And being that I'm completely prejudiced because I grew up here. I lived most of my life in New York. I think there's no better place to win in New York, and I think the Giants are in a position to offer him a lot of cool things, including a roster that has a lot of good young players, as you know, and they need to fill in some holes, as you know, but with a good draft and a good round of free agency, they can do it.
I want to start off with the process of kind of how we got here first, and then a lot of the things that you touched on, like the personnel, and and I guess that would include working with Joe Schoen. What could the Giants offer him? What is he looking for? So I do want to get into that, but I kind of want to work our way to kind of how we got here, because I am living and dying with every update. I don't care how minuscule it may be. And adding John Harbaugh, it was such a program changer and program shifter. Those are the two kind of buzzwords that I've been using. Would be so impactful. And I think at this point, we're at like an inflection point of the story of this franchise, considering where they were just, oh my God, 15, 20 years ago. And then now, where they've been basically since 2016, 2017, right? I seriously do think, and I want to get your thoughts on this, I seriously do think there hasn't been what I called a program changer, program shifter available like this since Bill Parcells, where he would come in and just fix stuff. What do you think about that?
Well, that's how Parcells was with the Patriots, the Jets, and the Cowboys, but not necessarily with the Giants because, he was a defensive coordinator who had never been a head coach in the NFL. I would probably say Coughlin was looked upon like that because after the years of Jim Fossil, where he kind of ran a loose ship, the Giants were looking to become more disciplined and hold players accountable. And so Coughlin was like that. But Coughlin wasn't as accomplished as John Harbaugh is. Tom took the expansion Jaguars to 2 AFC championship games, which was tremendous in their first, 4 or 5 years. Harbaugh comes here as as a Super Bowl champion, and the Giants have never hired a Super Bowl champion. Dan Reeves had been to Super Bowls, but didn't win it as a head coach. So, yeah, I think this is a huge hire for the Giants and a chance to change the course of their future, the immediate future. I can tell you this, John is 63 years old and feels he has the energy to coach another 8 to 10 years. And if the Giants got 5 years of high quality performance out of the team, I think they'd sign off for that in a second, considering what's been going on around here. But, John is highly energetic and involved in everything. And I think he immediately changes the outlook for the Giants. I think it would be a great hire. One thing I want to say just about what's gone on here since the last Super Bowl championship, and I have a lot of friends who are huge Giant fans, and I have to listen to them moan and complain all the time. And what I tell them is, since the Giants won their first Super Bowl in 1986, do you know how many teams have won more than the 4 the Giants have won from 86 to today?
86 to today. So I guess the Cowboys would the
One, the Patriots.
Oh, the Patriots. Okay.
Cowboys have won 2. 3
That's right,
rather,
just did
since
one.
then.
Yeah, right.
Giants have won 4. The Patriots have won 6. So I say, think how the other half lives, like right in your own town with the Jets, and what it's like to be a Jet fan and to be continually disappointed. At least most Giant fans who are older than, say, 20 years old remember at least the last championship, and those who a little older can remember the last 2, and then you can go back, the Giant fans who have been fans since 86 or whatever have 4 championships that they can remember. So this downturn in this, horrible period that the Giants are in now, if you put it in perspective, of course you're disappointed now, but when you think about how many championships they've won, I don't really feel like Giant fans have much to complain about. But I do know everything is based on what's going on today.
Right. So I'm very fascinated also with who and what is involved in this search and what their roles are. Like the first thing that we heard, Chris Mara and John Harbaugh sharing a meal together. Like that's like, besides just on the phone stuff and virtual communication. That's one of the first Giants to Harbaugh pieces of communication. Like, what in the world do they talk about? I want to start off with that, and then I kind of want to ask more about Chris Mara and kind of some other leadership stuff with the Giants.
Yeah, well, I think you absolutely have to take into consideration the health situation with John Mara, who is, the leader of that franchise. He and Steve Tisch, but John is on the football side, and the Tisches are more on the business side, and so Chris going down there, I would say that I'm probably 100% certain that if that trip was made and John wasn't battling cancer, and God knows we always wish the best for him,
Yep.
that I think that would have been John going to Baltimore and not Chris. But the two of them are really tight, John and Chris, and Chris was representing the organization, and Chris is a really bright guy who, if his last name wasn't Mara, he might have been the Giants general manager at this point, or been a general manager somewhere else. I have a lot of respect for his football knowledge, and I know Bill Parcells holds Chris in very high regard. And I hold Bill Parcells in very high regard. So if Bill is endorsing Chris as a legitimate football guy and not just the son of the owner, Wellington Mara, then that's good enough for me. So I think that was kind of a get to know you meeting. This is what we can do. This is what we have to offer. And, we'd really like to get an in-person meeting. So that's what I think Sunday was all about.
Yep.
This meeting they're having now, I can tell you for certain that Harbaugh was very encouraged that John Mara was, and I mean, without knowing 100% as we're sitting here right now, but I know it was John Mara's intention to be part of this meeting. And as he has been part of the coaching meetings that have taken place prior to today. I don't know if he was definitely there for the Mike McCarthy meeting yesterday. I would think he would be, but I know he was there, for the meetings that took place in the building last week. So Harbaugh was very encouraged that John is feeling well enough to take part in these meetings. I would think that something that would have to come up in this, Justin, is, the immediate future and what's going to be. And is John going to be around in the office all the time? And, who's going to be running the team on a day-to-day basis? I know he's been trying to get into the office as much as possible. So I think that would just be a logical question is, what does ownership look like? And then as far as the football stuff, and I'm sure you want to ask me some questions about this, but John, from what I've been told, the day after the season ended in Baltimore in past years, John went into Ozzie Newsome's office and said, give me the list of the top 100 players that are going to be in the draft, and let me start grinding on those. And then he was done with that. He would do the same thing with the free agents. So he was very involved in personnel. Now, Baltimore is known as a collaborative organization, and John's opinion, was taken, into consideration at the highest level. The ultimate decisions, I think, were made by Ozzie and then Eric DaCosta, but I think they thought enough of John that they probably wouldn't take a player that he was vehemently against taking, and if he was really, standing on a table for somebody, they would take him. And I think that's going to be how it's going to be laid out to John today, that Joe Schoen is going to stress that he's a collaborator. I don't think Joe is in the strongest negotiating position to be saying, no, this is all me and my department. So I don't think there's going to be a problem with the money. I don't think there's going to be a problem with responsibility. Harbaugh is not the kind of guy that's going to go in and demand his own general manager or that he has final say. In the draft, the roster might be something different. I'm not even sure how it works now. I don't think Joe Schoen was cutting the roster without Brian Daboll's input. So I think it's going to be smooth sailing, and I think he's going to wind up as the coach of the Giants.
Yeah, I want to expand upon Joe Schoen a little bit, because you talked. I just had a question of where does he kind of fit into all of this, and I do think, even though the results were obviously not very good, I just think how well he collaborated with Brian Daboll from a relationship standpoint, I think helps Joe Schoen and the Giants. And if Daboll was going to have such a large say on like who the quarterback is, that's all been reported back and forth. That they drafted, right, in Jackson Dart, or also the quarterbacks that they should not have drafted even in years past too, which I think is a key factor in this, as people were clamoring them to take Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy a couple years ago, and then they passed on those guys, and I'm glad that they did. It's, I think, obvious that Harbaugh is going to be given that same type of influence, if not even more. But it's also reported that Joe Schoen, and documented that Joe Schoen has been involved in the everyday type of coaching operations. And I think most notably, Joe Schoen hopping on the headsets in 2023 during that season. So how do you anticipate, outside of kind of just like, yeah, we're going to work together, how would you approach it if you're the Giants, going about convincing Harbaugh why this is going to be the right fit and why this is the right situation?
Well, that's a really good question. As far as the headset situation, I think it's because complaints got back to Joe Schoen that from assistant coaches that Dable wasn't treating them.
Yeah, they were all nuts.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that, I haven't been around the team for a bunch of years, but, I've stayed in touch with everything that's going on. I mean, when I was at the Daily News, I was there 2-3 times a week. So now just doing the radio show, I've managed to be aware of everything that's going on there. And very unusual for a general manager to get on the headset during the course of the game to monitor the communication between the head coach and his assistants. So I thought that was a really bad look for the organization, but I'm sure Joe felt it was necessary because, it's been documented that Brian had a rough time with a bunch of his assistants. I think Joe, like I said before, Joe's not in a position of strength here. He's lucky to still have his job, and that ownership still felt good enough about him to retain him. Now, you can, and my personal feeling, and nobody has told me this, but I do think that John Mara's health situation might have impacted Joe being able to keep his job, because it's hard enough to hire a head coach. If you had to go out and hire a general manager and a head coach, and John, going through treatments and stuff like that, and he's been the leader in the past on these coaching and general manager searches, and maybe he's just not up to it, to just basically blow up the organization, start over again 4 years after they did exactly the same thing. So he might just not have felt that he wanted to do that. And Joe has done enough good things here, including getting the quarterback, including, and a lot of made of this, including revamping the scouting department and modernizing the whole operation. And there is something to be said for that. And then the thought of having to bring in another GM and maybe just doing the whole thing over again, I wouldn't think that would be appealing. All that being said, I don't think Joe is in position in these meetings that are going to take place now to say, no, I have final say on the draft. No, I got the roster. I'm the only one doing the free agency. He doesn't have that kind of security now when they're bringing in a very accomplished head coach who is going to be the face of the organization along with the quarterback. That I think Shane is smart enough that if there is any, not confrontation, but if there's any contention on who's going to do what, I think by default, he's going to say, John, I look forward to working with you. And certainly you're going to have input. I think he's going to, if there's any power that has to be given up, he'll give it up. But again, I don't think that Harbaugh is that kind of guy. I think he's going to want input for sure. A lot of times the final say is a matter of semantics because coaches and general managers who have a good relationship make these decisions together.
Right. And I think at this point, the thing that I guess I'm worried about, it's kind of like it's a back of the brain worry, I like to say on this show. Back brain worry and then front brain worry.
Okay.
Back of the brain worry is, at this point, teams are not interviewing John Harbaugh to be like, are you qualified? Do you fit here? Teams are auditioning for him. So at this point, it's not necessarily just, I don't think John Harbaugh would simply just want to hear, we'll do whatever you want. We'll do whatever you want. Just come here, just come here, just come here. I think he would want to hear like this calculated, well laid out, well thought out plan. And I guess this is the benefit. This is the benefit of the Giants getting such a jump on the head coaching search of when they let go Brian Dable, that they knew that Stefanski would be a possibility. And I guess eventually they knew that Harbaugh would be a possibility. So then they're able to get this jump on this. Meanwhile, and the Titans got to jump on it too. But meanwhile, the Falcons were, behind the eight ball because they just let go of Raheem Morris and things like that. So that is what I'm hoping, that their plan of whatever that collaboration looks like and whatever, I don't think John Harbaugh just wants to hear Joe Schoen just totally bow down to him. I'm hoping that there's just a laid out plan and it's something that Harbaugh would be attracted to. That's what I'm hoping at this point.
Yeah, Atlanta wasn't set back because of Raheem Morris, because I think they fired him the next day. It was because they were hiring Matt Ryan as the president,
Right.
and they had to get that done first.
Yeah.
And then Matt's involved in the general manager and the coach search. So, listen, Harbaugh's had many conversations with Joe Schoen over the course of the last 10 days. And I think they've talked philosophy and responsibility and direction and personnel. I think a lot of that's been taken care of already in these many phone calls that Shane has had. And like, I'm sure he covered some ground with Chris Mara on Sunday. And today is just a situation where they just talk everything through and make sure they're
Yeah.
on the same page. And Harbaugh finds out, in depth what the Giants' draft philosophy and how it aligns with his, and how aggressive are they going to be in free agency, and how they going to fill, you know, how they get what's the plan on Wan'Dale Robinson, and getting a true number two receiver, because I think Robinson had a great season. I think he's more of a slot as a number three, and when do you expect Malik Neighbors back, and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's more putting the finishing touches on the conversations they've had to this point than starting maybe at square one where they did with Stefanski or McCarthy when they both came in the building. I think a lot of the prelim work has already been done on Harbaugh. And Justin, I'm going to tell you, I know John is a really honorable guy. He's got a lot of integrity and may not feel an obligation to go to Atlanta and Tennessee after he meets with the Giants, because maybe he gave his word that he would do an in-person interview. But excuse me, if I'm the Giants, I lock the doors and throw away the keys until I sign them and say, you have no reason to go anywhere else. This is a perfect setup for you. The money's not an issue. We're not that far away. When I say we, I mean now. I'm not calling me a we. Look at our personnel. We could be a dynamic defensive line. We'll probably draft some linebackers and defensive guys in the secondary where they really need a lot of help. The offensive line was improved. We got a quarterback. Look what happened to New England and Chicago. Second-year quarterbacks, first-year head coaches. And look at them. They're still alive in the playoffs. That could be us next year. I think that's the sell. And New York. We know they're in New Jersey, but it's only 6 miles from Midtown. And that's what I think is going on today. And whether or not they let him out of the building, I mean, I wouldn't. But again, John might say, listen, I appreciate it. Everything went great. I couldn't ask for anything more. But I gave my word to Arthur Blank and
Yeah.
the Titans, Amy Strunk, I think that's how you pronounce her name. And I'll be back to you. But this looks good. So he might feel an obligation to do that. Or he might say, why roll the dice on the Giants saying we can't take a chance on him going somewhere else? We know Stefanski wants the job. We know McCarthy wants the job. And, what happens if we're just sitting there for 5 days waiting for Harbaugh to get back to them? Do they panic a little bit and feel good enough to wait for Harbaugh? Or do they say, well, we're afraid of the phone call. I loved everything about your place, but I'm taking the job in Atlanta. And now at this point, maybe Stefanski's. I know Baltimore thinks really highly of Stefanski. Whether they hire him or not, I'm not sure. But your Giants can't get caught in a situation here, Justin, where they don't get any of these three guys. Because I know they want somebody with head coaching experience in the NFL, and those three guys are sitting right there, all of them unemployed. They can't take a chance on not getting any of the three. I think they have them ranked Harbaugh, Stefanski, McCarthy. That's my best information. And you just don't want to be in a situation where you're saying Kevin Stefanski is the guy that you targeted all along because you let Harbaugh out of
Shoot,
the building.
that would be lying.
Right. I mean,
That would be
even though,
lying.
even though Stefanski and and McCarthy have already been in the building,
Yeah.
that was more a question of logistics and availability rather than any pecking order.
Yeah. All right, this episode is brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The NFL makes every playoff moment feel even bigger. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection. If your player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you can still get paid in cash. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code JAMFootball. That's code JAMFootball to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Now back to the interview with Gary Myers. You mentioned the perks that the Giants could offer, and this is where that technology in that building better blow somebody away, because it's been talked about so much, despite the draft classes and the process, despite all of it not looking too hot, especially the first 2 years there. If it blows John Harbaugh away, and if it really is that good, then I'm all for it, and I'll change my tune on that.
Mm-hmm.
Other members of this pitch, this was awesome yesterday. Hearing about other members of this pitch outside of Joe Shane, John Mara, Chris Mara, Eli Manning, Tom Coughlin, and then even Brian Dable, somehow the fired coach of the Giants, somehow being part of this pitch. It's almost like fan fiction. Like, what's your insight into that and into this?
I'm really surprised about Brian Dable. Not that I didn't think he was capable of being a class act, because I happen to really like him. But it is very unusual for a coach who just got fired, who obviously didn't want to be fired and loves the quarterback, to turn around and endorse the franchise and the quarterback to a guy who potentially is going to take his place. Very unusual. Just an incredibly classy move by Brian. I think Giant fans who maybe were very happy that he got fired should maybe look at it in a different light now. That I've never heard of such a thing, honestly. I know your coaches who retire may try to recruit the replacement. I've never heard of a coach who gets fired trying to, in essence, recruit his replacement. As far as Eli is concerned, I actually texted with Eli about this after I heard about it. And I mean, Eli, once a Giant, always a Giant, only a Giant. That's how he thinks of himself. And I don't know if he's still working in that ambassador type role.
Yeah, like the communications. He's kind of like
community guy.
the face of it,
Yeah. I mean, I know at one point he had an office there. I'm not sure he still does. And he's so busy with all his media stuff. But he still cares an awful lot about the Giants. And he didn't say much about what his conversation was with John. He just said that he was hopeful that that John would come up and visit. And obviously, that's turned out to be what's happening today. So I'm not surprised about Eli. And then Coughlin, another Giant coach. Let's face it, Coughlin got fired and he went out kicking and screaming.
Yep.
For him to call Harbaugh, a classy move by Tom. Also, he loves the Giants. He won 2 Super Bowls for them. So, it's like all hands on deck, right, Justin? I mean, it just shows how unusual it really is for a coach of this caliber to be available and still want to coach. Usually coaches like this who end their tenure after being with a team for a very long time just retire. John could have gone into television. I know that for certain.
Yeah.
And that's not in his game plan right now. He wants to coach.
I think this is more or less a Yankees talking point of being like the evil empire. And I think you hear all the time, be the Yankees. Like, why are we messing around? Why are we talking about money? Like, when you hear the Steinbrenners talk about money, people roll their eyes because it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, would your father ever talk about that? So, part of me wants to equate that with the Giants of like, not even from like a money standpoint. That's not even what I'm talking about. But just be the Giants. Be the storied franchise that when this once in a lifetime, once in a decade, or even 2-decade opportunity. Like, I know Andy Reid became available at one point, but he didn't win a Super Bowl at that time. Like you said, Coughlin became available at one point, kind of seen as this program shifter. He didn't win a Super Bowl at that time. So when somebody like this becomes available, and as we've lost as fans and people that cover the team, we've lost like this over the last 10 or so years of the Giants are the Giants, and the Giants are still seen as the Giants. The Mariners are still respected, but I think as we see them differently. I think at least I do. Mm-hmm. But be the Giants and land John Harbaugh, and there's not even a question here. But be the Giants, be that storied franchise. This would help really get me back fully, like emotionally invested outside of just having a show of like, oh my God, I think this football team can trend in the right direction, because if not him, then who? If not John Harbaugh and his background and his resume and his ability to have influence in every part of an organization, if not him, then who?
Yeah, I think Giant fans are looking at it. If they don't get him, it's another black mark against the organization to add to all the losing that's gone on. And I'm sure John's going to be saying, hey, guys, what's gone wrong in the last 15 years? Why only 2 playoff appearances and 1 playoff victory? These are the Giants. How have you guys slipped so much? And that's a legitimate question. And it is kind of hard to explain how they've been so bad for so long. But if I was a Giants fan, I would look at it like this. I would be confident that this organization is doing everything it possibly can to hire Harbaugh. And if he decides to take the job somewhere else, they're not leaving anything on the table here.
Yeah.
I mean, or on the field, whatever the expression might be. They're doing everything they can to try to win him over. And like I said, I could be wrong about this. I think either he doesn't go on to visit the other teams and he just signs here, or he visits the other teams and he still winds up as a Giants coach. I truly believe that's what's going to happen. I don't. I'm sure one of the things the Giants don't want is for this guy to pick the Falcons or the Titans. I mean, 2 teams with like no history, and him deciding that's a better place for him to win and go win a Super Bowl than for the New York Football Giants, and to be subjected to the criticism from their fan base for not getting him. I'm sure they're very anxious about that, and that's why they're doing everything they possibly can. And again, like I said, money. I can't imagine money will be an issue. John was making, I think, in his new contract around $17 million, which seems to be the going rate. So maybe there's a premium that the Giants are going to have to pay now because there's competition for him and he's got some leverage. But I don't see him, being greedy here and saying, I want $40 million a year, which is twice as much as anybody else.
He'll get 20, I think, at least, because that's what Andy Reid's getting.
I think his agent is going to want to raise the bar over the highest paid coach in the league, because it'll be a positive reflection for him. And I know his agent, Brian Harlan, really well. He used to be the PR guy for the Bears, and his dad is a former president of the Packers. So he's been around football his whole life. All these agents look at it like, if I got a commodity like this, I want to reset the market because it helps me recruit other clients. When I said, look, I just got John Harbaugh, $23 million a year, which is more than Andy Reid is getting, and he's won a bunch of Super Bowls. So I think the Giants realize that they're going to have to pay this guy a bunch. But really, when you think about it, Justin, it doesn't count against the salary cap. They just sold 10% of the team for $1 billion.
Julia Koch and her money.
Yeah. They get so much money from television. Like I said, I don't think the Giants want to reset the market by doubling it, but I can see them paying them $5 million more a year than anybody else has ever gotten.
Yeah.
Belichick was getting in the low 20s, so I can see this coming in at minimum of 20 and probably a maximum of 25, but I don't think the money's going to be the determining factor here.
Yep. I want to ask you this too, because like I said, how many books you've written, and it's not even just on the Giants in the New York area. You've stretched across all around the National Football League and the history of it. in the grand scheme of things and the history of the league, I want to look big picture right now. I feel like this is such a unique time where a coach like Harbaugh was let go. Tomlin leaves the Steelers and will eventually coach another team next year.
Maybe, maybe not.
Mike
He might.
McCarthy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that if he goes into TV, maybe he becomes Bill Cowher. Maybe there's something about the Steelers coaches to get into TV
Yeah.
and find out it's a much easier life and the compensation's pretty good. And Tomlin's going to be a guy that's going to have multiple offers. So who knows what he'll wind up getting. But go ahead. What were you saying? I didn't mean to
So
interrupt
just
you.
crazy that these guys that have been there for almost 20 years, just all at the same time are like, all right, it's they're good, and it's not like they're bad. It's not like they're winning 3, 4, 5 games a year. Mike McCarthy becomes available again, and he has been available. Stefanski, who is very well respected and has won Coach of the Year, 2 double-digit win seasons with the Browns. No less, all these guys are available all at the same time, and 28% of the league, 9 teams, are looking for a new head coach. Is it a stretch to say this is the craziest head coaching cycle of all time?
No, I mean, I'd have to go back and study some others, but I don't think there's ever been any more than 9 openings in any one cycle.
Like this sounds like especially if the Giants land Harbaugh, this sounds like this is a book in the making. The last 2 weeks sounds like it's a book that's in the making of how they landed Harbaugh and how wherever McCarthy's going to go, wherever Stefanski is going to go, and Tomlin, like all of this is going to be like somebody's going to write a book about this. Maybe even you.
Who knows? I mean, to have one coach who was with Tomlin was 19 years, I think, right, and Harbaugh was 18 years.
Yeah, yeah.
To have them both in this within a week of each other, one gets fired, one resigns. Very unusual. And then you go back, 5 years or not even 5 years, 3 years, and Belichick leaves a place that he was at for, I think it was 24 years. And then, Andy Reid's been around in Kansas City for a while, but he's actually been a head coach in the NFL since the late 90s without any interruption. You're going from one job to the other. I mean, these are some of the all-time best coaches. Now, the one thing I do want to say, when you look at Sean Payton, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh, between the three of them, wouldn't you have thought that each of them would have won more than one Super Bowl, considering when Sean was in New Orleans and he had Drew, and it was such a high-scoring team and considered the best coach-quarterback combination, at least in the NFC. Obviously, Brady and Belichick were the best in the league and the best of all time. Tomlin gets to a couple of Super Bowls and wins only one. Harbaugh only gets to one, and he has Lamar Jackson, the most dynamic player in the league for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, them not winning it in 23 and 24 is disappointing because those were kick-ass teams.
Yeah, it shows a couple of things. One, how hard it is to win it, and how the competition is so incredible. Two, that you really have to have good luck with injuries.
Yeah.
And I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl before. I was on a call. I was talking to John Harbaugh like in May, and I said, not for nothing. It's not like I can put any pressure on you, but boy, John, I really think you're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Because, it's really nice for you to say that, and, we think we have a good team, that kind of stuff. And then we saw, they were ripped apart by injuries the first 6 weeks of the season. They got off to 1-5 start. Yep. And just the fact that they were able to fight their way back into a winner-take-all final game of the season in Pittsburgh, it just shows what a good coach John is, and he kept the team together. But you also look at it like they had an opportunity there at the end of the season. They lost the home game to Pittsburgh.
Yep.
They blew a big lead to the Patriots in a home game. They lost a big lead against Buffalo in the season opener. So despite, how good a coach John is, how good could they have been this year if they had their team all the way through? Yep. And Lamar wasn't the same when he came back from that injury. And he was hurt a couple times during the year. It just really shows that all the pieces really have to fit into place to get far into the playoffs and to win a Super Bowl. Because, three of the best coaches this generation like I mentioned, Peyton, Tomlin, and Harbaugh, they won one title each. And you'd think with the teams that they've had over the years, they would have done better than that.
All right, we got to take one more break because I got to talk to you about HIMS. Today's episode is sponsored by HIMS. ED is more common than you think and simpler to treat than ever. Through HIMS, you can connect with online with the licensed provider to access personalized treatment options discreetly and on your terms. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. HIMS brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access, personalized treatments that put your goals first. This isn't a one-size-fits-all care that forgets you in the waiting room. It's your health and goals put first with real medical providers making sure you get what you need to get results. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/giants. That's hims.com/giants. For your free online visit, hims.com/giants. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Now back to the interview. Do you think that's a reflection on, because I've seen a lot of people talk about social media and the pressure that it puts on teams, and I don't know if I fully believe that talking point, because I think social media, and it's not real. Like Twitter's not real.
No.
The comments are not real. The replies are not real. It represents a portion of what people actually think and feel about you. And trust me, over the last 8 months, I've had to come to that realization about what even people say about me online. But neither here nor there.
Anybody say anything bad about you, Justin?
Thank you, I appreciate it. But over the last, that's what I've seen. A lot of people say, like, oh, look at how social media makes organizations impatient and it demands results right now, and that's why you're seeing 9 head coaches being let go at the same time and all these big names suddenly all of a sudden becoming available. What's the source of, do you think this is just an anomaly that 9 teams are available plus all these veteran head coaches and successful accomplished head coaches are available, or do you think it's kind of just like the sign of the times and where we are now?
Well, I definitely think there's been a change in terms of the patience of the owners, where I mean, back in the free agency days, going back like to the 70s and 80s, coaches used to come in and have to outline to the owners their 5-year plan
Yeah.
and how by the 5th year, they'll be competing for a championship. Now it's more like a 5-week plan. Owners just are not patient. They don't want to sit around and wait 2-3 years for results. And I would say, other than the really established coaches, like Harbaugh will be given more than 2 years. And if Tomlin coaches again, he'll be given more than 2 years. And maybe Stefanski, even though he's won the coach of the year twice, he fits more into the 2-year category, that he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt 1-2 years. So I think these coaches are getting 4 and 5-year contracts, but they're really 2-year deals, 2-year commitments. They still get paid, but it's more of a 2-year commitment. I mean, look at Aaron Glenn. People wanted him fired after 1 year. I just think there's so much money involved, and this is such a big business. I mean, billions and billions of dollars, that owners want immediate results.
Yeah.
And so the immediacy has, in many cases, like you got 1 year to show the program's in the right direction, and you better win the second year, or you're gone.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that has changed. And to your point, Justin, is that a result of the pressure social media puts on? Or is that just the pressure because these players are getting paid so much money and the owners don't want to go through rebuilding or a transition period? I mean, there's a lot of factors here, but I don't know that, and maybe social media plays a little part of it, or talk radio, and that these guys are not living in a bubble. I mean,
I think there's more noise, because especially now, like there's always been talk radio, there's always been Sports Center. But now I think they're and if you check it, and if you're on it, which you got to figure players are on it, they name search themselves all the time. You never know who's listening to this show. That has always surprised me as the years have gone on, kind of hearing rumble, family members listen, and then family members will tell whoever. There's more noise now more than ever. The noise has always been there, but now I just think it's really amplified now, and I think that could change things.
I agree with you, but what I think the loudest noise is when it's quiet at the stadium. I think that's the loudest noise that's being made. And I know Wellington Mara always, his philosophy was, I don't care if they boo because it shows they care. I care if they don't show up because that shows they're indifferent. And now the booing can easily get a coach fired as well as the indifference. But I thought it was always interesting that he felt as long as the fans were still passionate and he hasn't lost them, then that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
When you go to now, I wasn't there, but I don't know if you were at the Giants' last home game against the Cowboys.
Yep. I was there.
All right, so the Cowboys always their fans always well represented at MetLife Stadium, whether it's against the Giants or Jets.
Yep.
But when you get to November and there's all those empty seats, or you're playing a team like Philadelphia and their fans just travel up the turnpike, and the whole thing with the secondary market where it's so easy now to buy tickets. You used to have to buy them from scalpers or find ticket brokers. Now you just go
Yep.
on one of these sites and within 30 seconds you have good seats to the game. And if the home team is having a bad season, it's not even going to cost you that much, probably below ticket price. So when you have the other team's fans accounting for 15, 25, 30% of your stadium, and it's against a divisional opponent, that speaks really loudly too. So I think
Yeah.
that there's pressure that comes out of that as well.
All right. I got one more question for you. You are a Hall of Fame voter, yes?
I am.
I'm going to put you in a spot here. What do we have to do to get Eli in? And can you give me a name of somebody I just want to talk to him? I just want to talk to him and tell him my reasons why they may be wrong. What do we got to do to get Eli in?
Well, I'll just say that, to this point, Eli didn't get in the first time around, and I'm hoping that he gets in soon. In my mind, and the argument I've made in the meetings is two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time Super Bowl MVP, beat the Patriots twice. The first time the Patriots are going to be remembered as the all-time best team, the greatest single-season team in NFL history. And in each case, he beats them with a 2-minute drive. And in my mind, what else needs to be said?
Yeah.
But part of the pushback has been that he had a 117 and 117 regular season record, which is like the epitome of mediocrity when you're at 500. My counter argument to that is in Eli's first 8 years, he was 69-50 with two Super Bowl MVPs. And if he retired after his eighth season, would he already be in the Hall of Fame? Because we've put Terrell Davis in, we put Kenny Easley in, Luke Kuechly is a really strong candidate this year. He only played 8 years, I believe. So if he walked away after 8 years, would he already be in? I think yes.
Yeah.
Now, he was 19 games over 500 his first 8 years, and that means he was 19 games under 500 his last 8 years. So how much of that was his fault? Well, general manager got fired. Jerry Reese got fired. He went through a couple coaching changes. Was it Eli's fault they were 19 games over 500, under 500, or
And he didn't get hurt. He played through all of it.
they played? Yeah, or is it the fact that he played? They had two 1,000-yard running backs in his last after the second Super Bowl. One of them was Saquon. I'm trying to remember who the other was in 2012. I can't off the top of my head. I don't remember. But
Was it David Wilson? Did he ever get 1,000 yards?
who's that?
David Wilson? Did he ever get 1,000?
No, not Dave Wilson.
I'm even looking up Orleans Darkwa in 2017.
No.
He got 750.
Yeah, it was 2012, Justin. If you can look that up, they had
I'm
1,000
looking
yard
it up
rush
right now because now I'm
2012.
even curious too. This is a good trivia question.
Yeah.
It was Bradshaw. Bradshaw got 1,000 yards. In
Okay, so
2012.
yeah, Bradshaw in 2012 and
Yeah.
Saquon, I think in 18. I'm not counting
Nobody
19.
else in the middle of that. Jeez.
Yeah. Look at some of who the running backs were. Rashad
Jennings.
Jennings, Orleans Darkwell, like you mentioned. So, my point is, and the offensive line deteriorated. Odell was his only real true weapon, and he talked his way off the team 5 months after getting a $90 million contract extension. You know, so I just don't think the Giants did a good job surrounding him with players. Michael Strahan is the only Hall of Fame player who ever played with, and he played on the other side of the ball. So he never had a Hall of Fame offensive teammate. So listen, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I hope that he will be at some point. I don't know how long it will take, and I think he's got a good case, and I'm gonna, once Bob Glauber retired from the committee, he was doing the Giant presentations and I was doing the Jets. So because I wanted to do Eli, I asked the Hall of Fame if I can switch to kind of being the Giants representative. And we have no affiliation with the team, obviously. It just means when there's a player from that team that needs to be talked about, I'll talk about the Giants. Now, Rich Cimini from ESPN talks about the Jets. So I'm doing my best for Eli. You can't rewrite history. You can just kind of review it and point out the good stuff and try to explain some of the bad stuff. But boy, two-time Super Bowl MVP, and considering the team that he beat and beating Brady and Belichick, I mean, that goes a long way for me.
We'll keep fighting the good fight. Want to thank you for coming on again. It's a long time coming. Is there anything that you want to, promote on this show now that we're at the end? I know that you messaged me about coming on for Once a Giant, I think like last summer. So I would love for people to go check that out and
the
and
Once a
support
Giant
you, so whatever else you want to promote.
Yeah, for your audience, and you can see the cover behind me. I've written 7 books, and then I collaborated on an 8th book. Once a Giant is my best book. I was very emotionally invested in that book because I knew all the guys, and it's not a recount, Justin, of the '86 season. It's about how during the '86 season and a couple of years before that, this team really became a brotherhood, and how now coming up on the 40-year anniversary of that team, which is unbelievable, how they've stuck together and they take care of each other now that they're in their 60s and 70s, and whether it's getting each other to doctor's appointments that they're afraid of going to, or helping each other out financially to some of the guys who are in need, or just being a shoulder to cry on. This team has remained together, and they are bonded more than any team than I've ever been around. And so the book is about how that brotherhood formed and how it stayed intact 40 years later. And I'm going to make another push to promote it this year because it is the 40-year anniversary. I know this is self-serving, but I highly recommend it to anybody who's not only a Giant fan, but anybody that cares about players in their lives and what happens to them in life after football. There's so much stuff in there that there's heartwarming stuff in there and there's heartbreaking stuff in there. And it involves some of the biggest names in Giants history. So I recommend that. And the book I just had come out in September, it's called Brady versus Belichick, The Dynasty Debate. And that really examines, who gets the credit for their 9 Super Bowl appearances and 6 Super Bowl championships that they had together. And it's a very nuanced argument. It goes much deeper than, well, Brady won without Belichick and Belichick didn't win without Brady. Because I really make my judgments based on what they did together and not what they did separately.
Right. Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on. The link to Once Giant is going to be in the description of this episode, whether you're on YouTube or the podcast app. So go check it out. And Gary, thank you once again for coming on.
Hey, Justin, it's my pleasure to be on with you, and you do a great job. And if anybody's getting on you, tell them they got to answer to me if they're getting on you.
All right, I love it. All right, I'll send them your way.
Okay.
Don't hold your breath. All right, thank you again.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
All right, I want to thank Gary Myers once again for coming on the show. The one thing that I kind of wanted to ask, I had this whole thing written about Chris Mara. Like he has like an ambiguous role with the organization. So if he helps them like secure John Mara, I'll thank him 1,000 times over. But I kind of like wanted to get at Gary, like what is his role? But then we started to talk about Joe Shane, and I didn't want to necessarily get back to it. So we talked about Chris Mara a little bit, but we still don't fully know like what his role is. What he does, because he was, his role has become very ambiguous since 2021. And it seems like he took like 1 or 2 years or 3 years like off. And then we go down to the Senior Bowl this past year, and he's just like there, and he's like way more prevalent and way more present in like everything. So like, what does he do? I don't really know that. But if he helps us land John Harbaugh, then I guess I'll be thankful for him. So whenever John Harbaugh lands and gets a job, whether it be with the Giants, which knock on wood, man, go be the Giants. Go get this guy. Go get this dude, man. Be the Giants. Be the storied franchise that people want to be part of. That's my slogan. That's my thing. Be the Giants. Wherever John Harbaugh lands, I think we'll go live. Hopefully it'll be Sean and I. Regardless, you'll hear from us next week or even this week, depending on if he takes a job this week. You'll hear from us whenever news breaks. Thanks for watching. Let's go Giants. See you next time.
It starts today. Let's go Giants! We